So before I begin, what's your favorite SprintRay resin?
Pink Party model resin. I'm kidding. The day-to-day, the one we use the most is probably and I didn't think I would like it, is Simply Clear Niagara Flex 2.
All right, here's for you.
Thank you.
What about you?
For me, I think my favorite resin are the ones I mix myself at the resin lab. Well, obviously, we can't sell that.
Right.
But other than that, I think Crown HT has been phenomenal.
Right.
And then I really like the new Die Model 3, or we call it the Stone Model.
Here's for you. It might have been mixed up, but I want you guys to actually drink the resin.
No way.
Stay hydrated.
No way.
Look at that.
Oh, wow. Is this
a bottle?
This is
this
cleared,
FDA?
FDA
No,
cleared,
this is awesome.
drinkable resin.
Yes. Wow.
No,
So-
this is
so
cool.
awesome.
So I got
I
that
love
one
this.
going.
There we go. This is what we get for
Stay
hydration.
And
Right
you
there.
can
I love it. Oh, look at that.
drink your resin.
Look at that. Bob Material Innovation
Yes.
Lab logo in the back. Love this.
So Amir, is this,
Very nice,
is this,
very
is this,
nice.
is this BPA free?
BPA free, FDA clears, none.
I love it. It's pretty close to the production bottle.
No,
More
it is.
Yeah,
It looks
it's-
exactly the
It's a
same.
little fatter.
It's not by accident.
No, this is
but
awesome.
I wanted you
This is
to say
cool.
hi.
Thank you.
You
Absolutely.
guys have such creative people.
So welcome to the podcast. We did one about a year ago, and I think that turned out really good. I wanted to continue to do more with both of you guys. So what's up? What's new
Well,
in your life, in the practice, in dentistry?
life has been sort of crazy for me over the last 18 months or so. And then, this year, I think when people ask me, Stephen, what is your goal for 2025? And I literally told them, my first goal is to be as lazy as possible. I'm really not doing a very good job. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, spoke at 2 different universities, had meetings on a daily basis, and we keep doing these crazy cases in the office. And I think, if you believe in fate and destiny, it's sort of like things just happen. Like yesterday, I just had that case that we talked about, total power outage at the office, emergency patient, like VIP patient flying from Texas for half a day just to see me. His the same flight out. Originally, we're planning on either printing or milling a veneer for her, and then we end up like printing the veneer on the back of my Cybertruck on the Midas, and we were able to deliver everything. And I was thinking, I have my fingers crossed. For the love of God, please let this be a no adjustment veneer, because I have no handpiece in the office. I can't even do any adjustment.
Right.
And sure enough, it popped right in. No adjustment, no occlusal adjustment. Margin is perfect. Clean it out, and that's the story of my life right now. It's real exciting.
So you printed it in the back of your Cybertruck.
There's
Oh,
no
you did?
power. There's no power in my office. I can't stress this enough. We're able to scan on my laptop with a Medit scanner, so we had enough battery to do that, to design everything. We had no Wi-Fi, so I had to export it onto USB-C, and I plug in the Midas to the back of my Cybertruck. We have power outlet, so we have the Cure unit.
Show us a picture.
Shows a picture. Oh yeah, we'll put that to Jamie. So I'll show you the picture.
Okay.
And the crazy thing is, I went out there and we're thinking like, all right, I'll do this on the back of my Cybertruck. It was 50, 70 degrees. It was a 20-mile-an-hour wind gust, and then it started pouring. So I had to close the tunnel cover on the Cybertruck, and then the Midas was printed underneath it. It was wild. But at the end of the day, we're just thinking like, well, like Dr. Voulet was saying, 99.99% of the doctor will say, we're going to have to reschedule. Sorry, you have to rebook your flight. And I was sitting there just thinking like a mad scientist. I think we can do this. There's no reason why this cannot be done. And the sense of wonderment and the sense of fulfillment when everything is done, it was just crazy. A year ago, nobody would have thought this is possible. But what that means is that I can literally do this at a sporting good event. I can do this on an airplane. I can do this on a submarine. I can do this when I'm out camping, because that's how flexible and how portable all this technology is.
Absolutely. How's your Cybertruck doing? Are you still a fan of Cybertruck after a year of flexing it, using it?
So I personally like it a lot. Like, the story for me in the Cybertruck is different, because I was there on the day that was launched. And the reason why I love it was because I'm a big fan of aerospace. I knew the stainless steel, again, coming back to material engineering, biomaterial science.
Right.
Cybertruck is a product of the material that was based on. And the reason why the stainless steel was chosen wasn't because Tesla engineer look around for the best material. It was because they're trying to develop the Starship. And Starship was originally supposed to be this, 40-story tall composite rocket like everything else.
Right.
They end up choosing cold pressed stainless steel, and they had a lot of data on it. And then someone just thought, hey, why don't we use this for our vehicle because it's so cheap and so durable? So for me, it was a material science story where basically
That's very cool.
we keep looking at product as an end product, but actually everything is driven by the material science. So I love it, but on the political side of things, when you drive around having people flip you off,
it's crazy, right?
It's a crazy world right now. It's a crazy world right now.
Elon is getting a lot of hate, which is sad because.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I don't want to comment too much on that. I believe in the mission. I love the science, but politics is beyond my scope. Like, I don't see there's a win in it. So
you are getting hate while you're driving it.
I am.
You do.
I am. Yeah. Someone called me a Nazi the other day. I told them, does this look like your stereotypical Nazi? Like, I don't understand.
What do you think, Wu?
I think you should get the Toyota sticker like I see on the internet and put Toyota on the back of your Cybertruck.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a, for me, I was just talking to my patient the other day. The most valuable thing in life is not your name, it's not how much wealth you have, it's not power and all that. It's good stories.
Absolutely.
And in my experience, the Cybertruck gives great stories. The same thing with Biomaterial Innovation Lab, SprintRay, printing crowns and veneer out the back of your Cybertruck and all that. It's great stories. These are the things that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're going to remember, and it's going to bring you joy. It's going to bring a smile to your face.
Absolutely.
You're not going to remember anything else.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. It's great stories.
So, Vu, what have you been up to? Is that the F1 jacket or?
This is just it's an F. It's Fabletics, but not it's F1.
So what have you been up to?
Oh, the daily grind. Just being the street level superhero.
That's amazing. Busy with practice?
Yes, practice is busier. We're hiring. We hired actually a couple new members. So that'll be fun. First time I think we've had an equal number of males and females on the team. It's very rare in our business to have that. So that's going to be a new dynamic. So far everything's doing great. Hard to work trucking. I'm trying to rebuild our 3D printing lab a little bit. I took something down and I'm having trouble getting it. I took my cart down. I'm trying to rebuild it and doing that stuff. So last night was, working on woodworking.
Yeah, no, your studio / lab looks amazing. And how's the photography business?
It's a weird thing. It's like sometimes you work really hard on it, nothing happens. Sometimes you just put it on the back burner to worry about other things. And I'm just looking, I'm getting I think I sold a couple just on the way here.
That's amazing.
Just talking to Steve and I'm looking, oh, look, another order. Oh, look, another order. And I get a notification on my phone. It's great. We have a lot of loyal friends and customers that just keep referring. I think that's how it's happening. I'm not pushing it much. I'm busy just being a dentist, and it's great. Awesome.
They're great products. And for those who don't know, Dr. Leb makes these amazing photography kits that you can buy it from the website that he has. It's called Photodontist, right?
Photodontist,
Photodontist. It's pretty cool, innovative, that turn your iPhone or Android phone into such a great DSLR photography kit. It's great. We're a fan of it. So IDS seasons, and we're getting into probably 10 days till IDS. I'm flying in about a week, and I think this episode will be published before IDS. Just want to get into predictions. What do you guys expect to see? What have you heard from different companies? And we want to go broader than 3D printing. Let me start with you, Steve. You're going, right?
I'll be there.
Yeah. When are you flying?
There. I'm going to fly in on Monday. So I should arrive Tuesday morning. I'm staying the whole week until, I think, Sunday morning. So it'll be my first time in Germany in IDS. So it's going to be real exciting. But, I feel like I got all these people messaging me. So I've got a bunch of meetings set out. It'll be great to see our friends globally as well as from the European continent. So very excited.
That's
very
amazing.
excited to go.
What about you, Vu?
You're
not going.
I'm not going. It's on my bucket list for sure. I will be taking a full mouth reconstruction course in Northern California that week.
Oh, nice.
And yeah.
Can I guess whose course is it?
You can guess if you want.
Dunlop?
No. It's not Dunlop. It's Jenny Apikian. So it'll be on restoring teeth, not implants.
I see.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
great.
Got
Yeah,
it.
she's great.
So very good. So what do you expect from IDS? What are you going to there to see? Midas, obviously. You're part of it.
Yeah, Midas. I'm trying to figure out a better way to carry the Midas around the entire IDS show floor.
Right. Totally.
So that'll be a lot of fun. From the buzz I'm hearing around the industry, and then moving forward, I always feel like digital dentistry is sort of like building a race car. And early on days, 1960s, 1970s, when F1 first started, or like when car racing first started, everything was kind of like rickety. And you have to put things together. You have to sit there and fix it all the time. But what people really want to see is something that's more polished. And a lot of time when we come out as when people come out as a brand new product or a new software, there's a lot of spotlight on top of it. But, as a clinical director, like my obligation is to figure out how to take all this and really put it into a dental clinic in a way that flows. So it's one thing, like in engineering, we talk about, right, we need a proof of concept. We need to show something is possible. So you need to prove first that something is possible, and then you have to figure out how to make it feasible. I think that transition sometimes gets lost in all the spotlights. Like people care about, this is nice and shiny, but does it actually work? And how do we make it work efficiently? So possibility, feasibility, and the third thing is going to be clinical efficiency. To really have it nailed down to the point where it makes sense to do this every day, I foresee we're going to see a lot of that refinement. And maybe the refinement themselves don't get a lot of the spotlight, but that's actually the critical portion. It's sort of like someone were to tell you, hey, ChatGPT and AI is great. We got Grok and we got all these other things. Well, how is that relevant to my daily life? So we see Midas. Midas is great. The DPS technology is great. But how do I actually incorporate that into clinical? The same thing happened to photogrammetry. The same thing that happened to intraoral scanning. The same thing happened to material science. Even something as simple as composite, dental implant workflow, forge workflow, formal reconstruction. So those are the things that I think we're going to see a lot of at IDS this year. And I'm excited, especially to see how technology, AI, and also the new innovation, like true innovation, not one of those Me Too movements, but something that you haven't seen before. And I think the best innovation are the one that you see and you look at it, and within 5 seconds, you understand what's going on.
Right.
And then the first thing that goes through your head is, why didn't anybody think of that in the past? Right? Why didn't anybody figure this out in the past? And I think that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, you said something interesting. So first is about feasibility, and then what was the second phase?
So possibility,
Yeah.
feasibility, and then
So
efficiency.
is it possible?
Yes.
And because when we build these products, we go through the same phase of product development. At the beginning of it is just an idea, and you got to make sure or test it to see if it's possible. Yes. Then you get into, okay, is it feasible to turn it into a product? But you're not talking about product development. You're talking about actual usage in the practice. Oof.
Yes.
But sometimes you have ideas
Right.
that come out of other projects, right?
Oh yeah.
There's an example that here at SprintRay would be the Duo tank. That came out of another R&D. That was an idea that didn't come out of a here's a need, let's think of a product. Here's something that we came up with that kind of works in this product. Let's make it into its own product.
That's right.
So the process isn't always necessarily. I mean, we like to talk of it as linear, but the discovery process is sometimes happy accidents. A Post-it note, for instance, is actually a failed adhesive. Right. It was not sticky enough to do its intended purpose. They somehow managed to use it to make notes, pieces of paper stick, and there's $1 billion business.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And then when you transition those products into your day-to-day practice, I think you go through the same phases.
Yeah.
What was the first piece of technology you added?
The very first piece of technology we added, besides a telephone?
In dentistry. In dentistry.
Oh, the very first piece of product we added, probably the digital X-ray sensor, but that's kind of I guess you'd think it was a gimme, but it wasn't a gimme in 2005.
Right.
There was still some film around back then.
Yeah.
So
There's
after
still
that,
some film around today.
what was it? What came after that? The Photona laser was probably the first big ticket item I bought. That actually came before the first scanner. The OmniCam was the second. Yeah, I think that was
So did you go through the same phase at first? Is it possible to use this? Yeah, the tech works.
You know,
So how do I-
every piece of technology I've bought has a different story to it. Some of it comes out of, you know, immediate need. I think the laser came out of oh my gosh, so much can be possible with this. And you learn in the process of using it now since 2012. Some things are better than you thought. Some applications, it's much better than you thought at it. I mean, I love removing crowns with it atraumatically. I can loosen a zirconia crown, pop it off without a scratch. Some aspects of it don't work as well, and you kind of just fade those off.
Right.
I have to say, with 3D printing, there's some things I like printing on. You know, there's some things I love printing on resin. There's some things I like printing on melted plastic instead. There's some things we like to mill, and there's some things I like to drill. That's not supposed to be a rhyme, but you know, we'll come up with some. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when I think about the top 3 technologies today at dentistry, definitely iOS is number 1, 3D printing number 2, or it could be one and 2.
Yeah.
Photogrammetry, little bit maybe here, laser's been around. Why do you think printing and iOS have been top of mind, at least in the past 5 years? And they continue to be the driver of change in dentistry. Why is it like lasers? You just said it. It's useful, it's possible, it's feasible, but it's not that hot.
Lasers are going to be a niche item because the good ones are still very expensive because the volume is very low. It's a catch-22.
Right.
Anytime you have any kind of manufactured product, right, is if there's not a big enough market. Take the iPhone in your pocket, for instance. An immense amount of R&D, but because the market and the demand size is so large, that R&D cost, you're probably only paying a few bucks of R&D in that iPhone cost. Whereas, say, a dental product, I talked about this online recently, the dental tax, they call it, when they say, oh, well, you could have bought why not buy a $300 resin 3D printer? Well, there's more that goes into it than that. And I guarantee you that company that makes the $300 resin printer, they're not putting in the work, they're not putting in the time, they're not trying to validate or test anything. They're just trying to make it so you can make Dungeons and Dragons figures.
Exactly. I want to get back to that topic, really open it up. I was going to bring it up, but I'm glad you already did that. But back to printing and iOS, why those things you're expecting at IDS to see more of both of them?
So I'll say this, when I lecture and present on digital dentistry and digital technology, we always start with iOS. And technically, it's not iOS. And the reason why 3D printing, CNC mill, panoramic X-ray, CBCT, and intraoral scanner are also interrelated, we all know that. But, as any great scientist, when they look at the thing, we want to look at the big picture.
Right.
But what is the big picture? So imagine you're on Google Map and you're in the street view. You know where you are, but you want to zoom out. You want to continue to zoom out until you see the entire city, the entire continent. You want to see the whole entire Earth and see where are we in terms of the core of how this all fit into the big picture. For me, after doing a lot of thinking, the big picture is this. The 21st century is basically the human era for digitalization, right? Computer innovation, AI, cloud, all of that has to do with digital data and digital technology. What that means is like for the first time in human history, over the last, I'll say maybe 30, 40 years or so, we're able to digitalize something. We're able to modify it, whether it be VFX, whether it be architectural design, 3D printing is part of it. Scanning, industrial scanning is one of that. We can modify any of these data. So think of it as 2 circles. We have the real world, I call it the reality, and then the other circle is a virtuality. So these are 2 spheres that are intertwined. Anything that has to do with digital capture technology over the last 30 years bring us from circle 1 to circle 2. It allows us to digitalize patient data or architectural data or engineering data. So that is digital photography, digital X-ray, CBCT, that is intraoral scanning, that is photogrammetry. However, what do you do with that data? Because we are not Pixar Studio. We're not trying to make computer animation. We're not writing a sci-fi movie. The relevance of how digital technology impacts real clinical outcome requires another arrow that goes from virtuality into reality. And that is CNC mill and that is 3D printing.
Today.
However, as Dr. Voulier was saying, one of the first pieces of technology that I've gotten in digital dentistry that was really efficient was digital intraoral camera. And then the next one that I remember was CEREC. So I've been a CEREC user for over 16 years. In the office I worked at the office that Dr. Medit built, over 26 years. And one of the things I love about CEREC is same-day restorative that we can melt. We can basically bond in the patient's mouth, high quality, high aesthetic. But the thing I hated about the CEREC was that you can only really use it for dentistry. I tried so hard to use it to melt toys, Star Wars memorabilia, Gundam toys. You can't do anything other than dentistry. And that's why I love about 3D printing. This is why the first time that I bought this SprintRay printer, remember that for the first 6 months, I printed nothing but toys.
Yeah.
And you're thinking like, well, Steven, like you told me, please print something dentally related.
Absolutely.
But I was saying that, for decades, I've been wanting to do this. So
another thing, what you did yesterday, you had an emergency. You put your Midas in the back of your Cybertruck. You can't do it with milling. You can't do it with CEREC.
You could try. But I mean, this is a 100-pound machine. It was liquid inside. You have to hold this whole entire thing out.
It's not practical and feasible.
It is very, very impractical.
It's amazing how far we've come in the whole technology realm that you can grab your Midas, put it in the back of your Cybertruck, and print crowns. And the link to reality, I've heard it from many more doctors that you really get to see the object with printing.
Oh, yeah.
Even printing beyond milling, because you can't do models, you can't do night guards.
Absolutely.
So with that, what do you expect to see at IDS?
So
in the scanning world, let's start with that.
In the scanning world?
Yeah.
I think some scanner company made a big impact in the last few years, and we continue to see the price drop.
Sure.
The iOS technology, I believe, is one of those that's heavily driven by software, not necessarily the hardware. The hardware behind the technology hasn't changed for many years. So as the price continues to drop, I believe the development is heavily, heavily leaning into software. And a lot of that software development is now leaning heavily into AI.
Right.
So I know there are these punch words that people use, like AI and cloud and digital technology. But I think we're getting to the point where AI technology is really accelerating the way that digital capture works. It can process things faster.
Right.
I use a software called Polycam on my iPhone to basically scan objects from all the places.
Right.
I scan patient faces with it, but also digital data.
Right.
Within the last 18 months alone, we see a night and day difference between the digital processing of these photogrammetry tools. So you get much better mesh quality, much better rendering engine, and can capture things that a year and a half ago was impossible. Now, the phone hasn't changed. The input data for the coronet, the LiDAR, and also the photography has not changed. The only things changed on the back end is the software that is now heavily driven by AI. So I'm expecting to see iOS development in the higher scanner quality, not because it's a better hardware scanner, but because we have a much better software backend.
Right.
By the same token, AI technology that help dentists diagnose and treatment plan is improving leap and bounds. One of the challenges that we had back in the CEREC world was that for the first time, the doctor actually have to basically plan the case, prep it, scan it, design everything. Now what I see is like the next step will be, once we prep something, we can scan it very easily. Well, the AI and the computer will actually tell you whether or not some area needs to be prepped more, some area needs to be added. How do we avoid the undercut? Whether or not the scan is any good. So imagine having a mentor standing over your shoulder, and a very humble mentor that doesn't make you feel like crap.
AI,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a computer program that goes, well, I will suggest you do this thing a different way with better outcome. So I expect to see that.
So let me ask, I think more objectively, Vu, do you think 3Shape is coming up with a better scanner that does all the stuff that Steve said? What's your prediction?
Don't have any inside knowledge on that. Let's say that
Yeah,
first
it's just
and foremost.
pure speculation.
I would speculate 3Shape will. I don't think the Trios 5 has been out long enough yet. And
I think they teased something on their Instagram.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking, actually.
so the intraoral scanning has one thing in common with mobile phone photography in that
Right.
the hardware has largely matured. We don't really have much better silicon we can put into our phone cameras. The basic mechanism, there's the two basic mechanisms for an intraoral scanner haven't changed much. What's changed is there's two things that have changed three. Okay, one, the obvious one is they've gotten smaller physically, unless it's densely. The second is that the software, as he said, is getting better. The software is getting better, interestingly enough, a little tidbit. I don't know if you caught that years ago when Sirona went to CEREC 5 software. They did a big study out of Switzerland, I believe. And I noticed one little tidbit in it. They said the Prime Scan was so much better accurate than the OmniCam at the time. This was 8 years ago. But the OmniCam also jumped when they went to the 5 software. The OmniCam jumped in accuracy 60% with a new software revision. Same hardware.
How?
Version 5 CEREC software is better than version 4. I can subjectively, objectively, it is better. It's better proposing. It's better at margin identification.
Sure.
It's better at all. They just refined all the basic features
Yeah, Algo got better probably.
years ago, and now they've largely sat on it.
For the past 10 years.
For the past
18.
6 years. For the past 6 years, version 5 has just been kind of stagnant
Got it.
on that. So you're seeing Medit making extraordinary strides. 3Shape has been kind of evolutionary. They're still going to be the great scanner, okay software. You know, you have Medit being the okay scanner, great software, and then you have Shining trying to make a name for itself, and you have lots of other smaller players trying to come in because you basically have 3 plays. You know, you can have we have better software, we have a better scanner, or we're cheaper.
Right.
And so I think you're going to see a lot of we're cheaper.
I was in Dubai Middle East show. You guys know what that is. It's called ADEC.
Yes.
It's 3 times bigger than Chicago Midwinter. It's awesome, by the way. It's every year. If you guys can participate
One more thing
next
on the
year,
bucket list.
It's really good. And I think long term is going to take over IDS. That's my prediction.
No, I see that too.
You were walking by the aisle. You could buy a scanner for $1,000. I'm not kidding. It's Chinese.
The basic
and
hardware
no brand. All of them look like a Allied Star or the other ones that some other Chinese no names, Shining, which you couldn't believe it. And they all said, yeah, it's as good as Shining, 10th of a price. It was crazy.
The hardware inside is probably the same. That's why.
I believe that. And the only differentiation is what you said. The whole AI as well as software integration with your practice management with the other platform. So we're going to see a lot of cheap scanners at IDS, around $1,000. That's my prediction. I saw it in Dubai. It's not quite a prediction. 3Shape, I think, is going to be a new scanner. They teased something. I'm just referring to what they teased. What about Medit? Medit is bringing the button back.
That's a 0.1 release. That's the 0.1 release.
But I think they did not do a good job of marketing the latest Medit. I saw it for the first time in Chicago. It was pretty awesome. It was super low key. It was elegant design. Everyone complained about the lack of button. But that aside, it was pretty neat piece of technology.
Yeah. So the number one reason why the i900 did not succeed initially, and I think Ahmad and a number of others pointed out immediately, Stephen also, is that they overplayed the power of their brand and priced it too high to start.
Yeah, I think when it first started, it was $25,000, right?
That's
or $25,000 for Medit, which Medit customers are not used to. And then around the same time, I believe 3Shape came out as a Trios Core. Dentsply Sirona released the Prime Scan 2, and then Shining had their Elite at about $20,000. So the market price overall really fell a lot. So during that time, I think their end user have a difficulty justifying the price differential.
24.
Yeah, despite honestly, I've been using the i900 for a year. I mean, I love that scanner. And you were mentioning the 3Shape. I think 3Shape and Medit are probably two of my favorite companies in intraoral scanning. High quality product, very innovative. And I always look at it from the big picture as did they push the industry forward? Did 3Shape push the industry forward? Yeah. They own the laboratory side business. They have great scanner and great customer service for a very long time until Exocan and other competitors kind of came into the market. And Medit was really the first world-class scanner that drive the price so low that it democratized the access to digital dentistry. And then I love their software because for so many years it was completely free. So when I lecture at university like UCLA, when I lecture in Taiwan and Harvard, we can give this to the dental students so they can start. And I think part of what Dr. Voulier was saying was that software is so important. So if you say like, oh, I love cars, but I'm not gonna buy a car until like the perfect car comes out, right? I would love to go race my car, but until I save up enough money to buy a Porsche 911 GT3, I'm not gonna go to the track. Well, say that you succeeded beyond your wildest dreams and you're actually able to buy this $250,000 car. You don't know how to drive it.
Yeah.
If that is your goal, you should learn how to
Start
drive right
with the normal
now.
one.
Right. And then to me, something like Medit and their software allows end user to start driving CAD design, to start learning it. You can upgrade it to different software, whether it be in-lab, whether it be a 3Shape design or ExoCAD later. But for now, you can learn. So as the hardware, as a scanner and the software mature, you already know how to do that. And for me, this allows us to really push the industry forward by leap and bounds.
Yeah. Now, you're right about Medit. I think before the first i500 was the first one, right?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Cheapest scan. I remember you bought a
I have one,
$50,000 3Shape, and then you returned it and bought a Medit and a Tesla. For that year, that was your tagline.
No, that was a Prime Scan.
That was a Prime
So
Scan.
I was trying to decide between the Medit and the Prime Scan, and then what ended up happening was the Prime Scan is really good, and I love it. You know, like it can scan really quickly. The i500 wasn't quite as good, but the software is equally great.
Right.
Sirona was locking their software out, so you couldn't use any of their software for 3D printing anyway.
Right.
So I ended up using that budget, and I bought the Medit scanner, and I bought my Tesla. So
I remember
so
that.
was great.
At the time you did it, they did not allow STL export. If
Yeah.
I recall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, confession, I just bought a new scanner or a new pre-owned scanner.
Oh, yeah, you told me.
I got a Prime Scan.
Prime Scan.
Scan 1 Connect.
Okay.
Nobody
good.
wants them anymore. So I got a
Great
really
scanner,
good deal.
too. Performance-wise.
For
they're
the
best.
time.
Yeah.
Really good for the time and really good at edentulous areas.
How much did you buy it?
don't
He
say it.
promised me to secrecy.
So it's not an
But
eBay
he
deal,
promised me to secrecy. He is
Sub
selling.
10,000?
So he's telling other people. He's selling it to other people for $11K.
Okay. Wow.
But he promised me to secrecy about what the discount I got.
All right.
That's
You know,
all.
I'll
for you.
say though, I think that Prime Scan 1 is actually a significantly better product than Prime Scan 2. I don't know why you want to make it wireless and why you want to get it to the cloud. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense. I don't think the scan quality is any better either. So
Well,
that's
it
a weird thing.
seems to be the same engine, cloud-based.
Yeah, but a lot less headache, a lot less
the
dependencies.
speed of internet is not there to support it. It's gonna get good. That's my prediction. I like that direction. Whether the tech was ready or not, that's a different debate.
Yeah, it
and
was
I think they bet on the right direction. But in 2 to 3 years, I would say every other scanner will go there.
You think so?
It's interesting that basically 3Shape and Sirona took the same direction back then. I mean, Prime Scan was what, 2016?
Remember.
Prime Scan was 16, 17.
17, yeah. So I think that was Trios 4 era,
Right.
if I'm correct.
PS4 was there.
So yeah, they're both taking the same underlying philosophical approach, right?
Yeah.
They're both video triangulation where they flip left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. They take left, right pictures really rapidly.
right.
It's funny, the Prime Scan has a 24 frame per second thing, and if you listen to it and you're old like me, you think film projector.
Yeah,
Oh,
it goes
yeah.
click,
Because it has the
click, click.
same hertz as a film projection. 24, when you watch a movie, the refresh rate we're used to watching film movies is 24 frames a second, and it has that same like in elementary school. Anyway, 3Shape, though, the Prime Scan kind of was at 24 frames a second. 3Shape took their frames per second much, much higher, and they were able to gradually shrink their capture size. Densely kind of we'll take big frames and slow frames. And they both kind of have their approach to it. I think 3Shape, though, improved their scanning algorithms dramatically. Densely kind of launched and kind of just plateaued. They didn't
Right.
really go anywhere. So when you look at it now, this now presumably 8-year-old Prime Scan 1 is still as good as the new product. That's troubling as a
No, so-
company.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So on the switching the gear into the 3D printing at IDS, I think same. You're gonna see a lot of cheap printers, a lot of $300, $400. It's the same thing does the same. And I want to bring the conversation back to your dental tax. Is SprintRay charging a dental tax? Now you know us more.
Well, I would say that, SprintRay is charging. I think SprintRay is kind of middle priced.
Middle.
So there are some higher, there are some lower. That's. I would say SprintRay is a top tier company. I'll say that SprintRay is a top tier 3D printing company, obviously the market leader, and then everybody competing with you. It's telling if you see how people are competing with you. Are they competing with you by making something better, or are they competing with you by making something cheaper? If they're making it cheaper, that's an admission they can't make it better.
Right. No, I agree with you. But what is that dental tax that people say, oh, so-and-so company charged that dental tax?
So
It's...
there's a couple of things, right? There's reseller markup,
Right.
but everybody has that. You're
you
going to
need
sell to your
partners to
Shines
sell.
and Pattersons.
Exactly.
Everybody's going to have that tax. But below that, there's the cost of R&D. There's the cost of R&D, and in your case, you have hardware, software, and materials R&D. You're probably the only company doing that on all three fronts as hard, right? Pactent,
I want you to capture that. I like that line. We're the only company.
you're the only company fighting a three-front war
Right.
on R&D. You're hardware, software, and materials
Right.
all at once.
Correct. And that's expensive.
So everybody else is, okay, maybe they're doing a lot of hardware and a lot of software, but they're white labeling their resins and not telling anybody.
Exactly.
That's a lot of your competitors are doing that. Or they're saying, okay, we're an open system, which is, okay, there's an argument for that.
Yeah, that's
certainly.
Actually, that's not how it works, but yeah. A lot of top tier company, they white label, but they claim, well, our resin is better. And my question to them would be, how would you know? You didn't make the resin.
Right. No, the reality is there's a lot of liability into validation too. It's easy to wash your hand and say, go figure it out. But the clinicians taking the liability of buying a $300 printer, buying Amazon unvalidated resin, and really putting that medical device into patient's mouth. It's not a dental tax. It's essentially there's a price for those liability validation, peace of mind, and we're taking on those liabilities. We're taking on those risks by putting a solution that is fully validated, tested, clear, backed by science. And that's why some of our products are expensive. We get it. It is expensive.
It's a cost of doing business.
I mean, to me, my perspective is a little bit different. And I fully agree with Dr. Boulay here. Like SprintRay here, we're fully integrated. We have vertical integration from material science, not just material science development, the entire protocol from research, development, publication, clinical study, all the way to coming out with mechanical testing and safety, international ISO standard testing and validated workflow globally. We have our own hardware that mostly we built from scratch. You're not going to find a piece of equipment at SprintRay that is white label from someone else's manufacturing and having us sticking a SprintRay sticker on top of it, claiming to be our own. And obviously the printer themselves, the software themselves, everything is written from scratch. That's very rare to do because it is very, very difficult to do that. The question regarding how much something is, and we're a clinical dentist, and every single clinical dentist here will tell you, hey, what we do is worth this much. But for a lot of our patients, they don't think it's worth that much. Years ago, I literally had a patient that walked into my office, and this is a real story. She told me, I had another doctor prep my tooth, and I haven't had it cemented. My sister works at the dental lab. I know how much you guys pay for a crown. You pay $55. I'll give you $55 to put this crown in my mouth. I look at this woman in the eye and I tell her, if you can find someone that'll do this crown for you for $55, I'll pay for it. Right? The value isn't in the price and the merchandise itself. Like, to me, 3D printing ecosystem, I don't care which brand that you buy, is one of the cheapest and the most affordable dental tech you can have in your office. I mean, Sarah back in the day was $180,000. It's about $200,000 after 2 years of ownership with the materials, everything else included. Intraoral scanner back in the day before Medit i500 came out, it was $45,000. plus monthly service fee, you'll add up to well over $50,000. It does one single thing. It scans teeth. The Sarah does one single thing. It mills composite and ceramic restorations. Digital X-ray sensors used to be $20,000. That's expensive. Having a printer in your office that can print you anything from Pokemon to direct restoration to dentures to now retainers, in the future perhaps direct aligners, flexible partial dentures, surgical guide, and everything else for $15,000 or $18,000. That's one of the cheapest pieces of tech that you can have in technology. So I don't think printing technology is expensive at all. And we've been in digital technology. I've been in practice for 20 years. It's one of the most affordable tech that you can have in your dental office.
Right.
Besides digital X-ray, practice management software, and intraoral scanner, I think this is the next thing you should get. I'm not saying that CNC mill is not worth it, but a 3D printer can does almost anything the CNC mill can, with the exception that material development probably needs a little more mileage before we get there. But we can do so much more than any other piece of technology in the office. So yeah, and in terms of the development and all that, as Dr. Voulet mentioned, to do things properly, it costs a lot. If you want to do things just to say that, hey, I can do it. Like in 3D printing, I always said that it's very, very easy for you to make something that looks like it works. But to actually make it work, that's where the hard work is. And I can assure you that, from the back end, and now being the clinical director for the Biomaterial Innovation Lab, I see every step of the way. We're doing all of the right homework. We're doing everything by the book properly. And I would argue that no other company in the world does that right now. From software, from hardware, from the engineering, from the material to the global market. We're doing everything by the book. It does cost a lot. It's all worth it, but that's not expensive. And, in terms of like having a cheaper $300 printer and open resin, even the CEO of those printer manufacturers would tell you, please don't do it.
Yeah, open resin, I know having choices is great, and we do every day our best to validate more and more materials. There's probably at this point I can say there's Ivoclar denture base coming to our platform by IDS in about a week. I'm revealing it here. And we, again, game-changing, good, great, validated materials we put on the platform. But having a open, bazaar-like catalog, 300 materials, and every one of them need to be tested for mechanical properties, need to be tested for cytotoxicity, need to be tested for fit, for performance. Who does those in those companies?
You don't want to worry about that. I forgot to mention, we were talking earlier about what's the newest piece of technology. I confessed to use PrimeScan, but actually that might not be the most favorite piece of technology I purchased recently.
What was it?
The Nespresso machine. And, obviously there's an analogy here, right? We've talked about the Midas being the Nespresso machine of 3D printers.
It is the Nespresso machine, yeah.
But so there's, I think I wrote to somebody, said, can you talk about which 3D printer? This happens every day. Someone posts, what 3D printer do you buy? And I keep telling, my advice on this has been the same no matter what. I think that the vein this week was, which one would give me the best ROI? And you think of it from a business perspective. If you have the right systems and the right people, and you have obviously enough patient volume, you can make anything make money. But some systems will make it easier for you. And are you willing? I mean, if you want to piece together stuff, sure. I can a la carte arguably something a teeny bit better than a SprintRay system. I could take a printer here, a resin here, a curing unit here, and make something better, maybe a little bit less expensive. But let me ask you this then. How long does the average dental assistant last in your market? That's a hard question, right? I've looked at enough resumes I've been in business in my one location since 2005. And I've watched the resumes, and the average resume that we get, it's a new office every 2 or 3 years. I call it the 2-year itch.
2-year itch, yeah.
So let's say you have this a la carte 3D printer system. Are you going to teach, how easy is it going to be for you to onboard a new person every time?
Yeah, and you don't
And
need it
that's-
with Midas.
No, I think Dr. Roulet brought up this very good point. You know, I do a lot of education, and then one of the line that I always like to say is, I tell the attendees, you're taking this course and you're listening to my lecture because you want a 3D print and you don't know how to do it. So you want to know the nitty gritty detail. How do I nest something? How do I post process it? How do I design these things? Well, in my office, I don't do 80% of the stuff. I know exactly what to do, and I'm too lazy to do them. So I delegate most of these to my dental assistant team. And so I have design fabrication specialists in my office, and they're trained to handle scanning majority of the design, the printing, the post-processing. They change out the resin, they clean out the platform. I don't do any of this because I want my life to be easy. I just want to have fun. Like I tell people, I would like to go to the amusement park. I don't want to work there. So I don't want to go to Disneyland to, mop the floor and to clean the walls. I want to go there just to enjoy. And the journey to digital dentistry for us clinician, it should be fun. It should give you less stress. It should be easier. The SprintRay ecosystem is probably the easiest. Actually, I'll say it. It is the easiest and the easiest to learn, the easiest to maintain, and the easiest to get going. You can use a lecture system. You can, like Dr. Roulet said, you can garage kit together something that works. But then the question that I'll ask the clinician then is, how much is your time worth? Mm-hmm. We pay for things in three different ways only, right? You pay for it via your money. It's like you just spend more money to buy something that is better. You pay for it via time. So how much time do you need to invest into this to get it to work? And this is not just dentistry. This is any
Everything,
industry.
yeah, anything.
And number three is headache. That is your stress. If you want something that is very cheap, are you willing to spend a lot of time and doing a lot of headache? Is this leads into the quality of life question. If you're a high school student, if you're a college student, and you have aspiration to become a dentist, you watch a bunch of YouTube video by Dr. Baron Grutter, for example, and you decided to print your own aligner at home with an FDM printer and like a Amazon thermoform, you could do that. They have the time and the energy to figure things out because they want to save a little bit of money. How many clinicians around the world really wants to do that? So how much is our time worth as a clinician? Like as 20 years into my practice, I started to evaluate some cases we should do and some cases we shouldn't. Do you want to do a number 2 root canal in your office? I could do it,
Right.
but I really don't want to. The time and the headache that I get out of it, the neck pain I get out of it, I'll refer out. So don't torture yourself. Get the easiest system.
So, and on top of that, combining that with Midas and the efficiency that Midas brings to the indirect fillings, right? You completely are doing it with printed right now. I know, Vu, you're getting into that with Midas. Can we say the same thing about fillings that you just said about number 2 endo? Like if you want to do the old school way and rubber dam here and there and do those MODs, just Midas.
I will say there are some definite advantages. There are some challenges still with indirect dentistry, and that's one thing. Steve and I, we talk about this daily about what are things that indirect. We'll call it indirect, right? Because it's being made indirectly outside the mouth and cemented in.
It's printed.
Yeah, but just broadly speaking, indirect, whether it's printed or milled, there are some huge pluses to it, right? Our contacts are going to fit. Our margins are going to fit. Our occlusion should need as much adjustment, right? Because we're not just building putty in blind. We're actually designing occlusion. So everything better, but there's also, more moving pieces. And there's also still some feasibility challenges, right? If I have a teeny little box filling, If my filling is barely bigger than the support, I'm not going to print it.
Right.
But at the same time, if I have this big giganto filling where I'm thinking to myself, I can't tell you how many times, Amir, when I'm doing a direct composite, I'm at the 4th capsule of composite, I'm thinking, I really should have done this indirect. But you're already in it.
I agree with you. And cases like this, we're going to put the picture. Mm-hmm. This is a result of direct, right? Yeah. And this is indirect. As a patient, which one do you want?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
That one isn't new, is it? Please tell me that's not a new composite.
No.
But still, but what I'm saying is when there is a difference of this type of difference from a patient point of view, showing just one picture and charging more for it perhaps, or billing more on the insurance side.
So there are two mentalities we need to break for indirect to take off. The first is the patience,
Right.
because we need to. I don't buy into. I know Steve, God bless you, and doctors like Austin who are doing these for filling prices, but actually no, you're charging more.
I
now.
don't.
You're charging.
You're charging more.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
I
a better
charge more.
treatment.
Good man. Good man.
Yes.
So there are doctors who I've said who are sitting there and posting that they're doing indirects for the filling fee. I'm like,
Oh.
not what I would do. But we have to break two mentalities. One, can we convince the patients to pay more? So maybe there's three mentalities. Can we convince the patients to pay more for better? Can we convince the third-party payers to pay more for better? And maybe the most important, can we convince the doctors to learn something new and foreign to them? I mean, Steve and I are 10-year plus CEREC veterans. Indirect, came to us
Nature, yeah.
a long time ago. We
Right.
we're looking at we looked at a prep and we can just tell with our eyeballs whether it's going to work or not. It's not natural to a lot of dentists right now, just because it's not what they're used to. They're used to, we're just barely retiring away the amalgam mentality into posterior composites,
Yeah,
and
that's
now we're
true.
asking them to give up their composites and
Yeah, it's the same composite.
the majority of dentists, I'll be
Accurate,
honest,
faster.
the majority of dentists, they take a crappy insurance plan like me, and they bulk fill their composites with just this thick cure, this high cure depth, low fill, low strength, bulk fill garbage. That's what a lot of them are doing. Can we convince the doctors to do something a little bit hard, a little bit more technique sensitive at first?
Yeah, but with Midas,
Yeah, that's the three
Midas
mentalities we
and
have to change.
AI will take a lot of guesswork out, and when it's as easy as
Yeah.
making an espresso, I think then
Mm-hmm.
we have a shot at it, and that's why I think Midas is one of the most important, if not the most important
Yeah.
technology at IDS that is going to be top of the show, because it
Yeah.
makes indirects and crowns just a no-brainer and easy.
So to answer your question, Amir, I think there's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Midas. It's like something that's new, people haven't seen before, and like if you look at me, I might not look super excited about the entire Midas because I've been using it for a whole year. So I'm not here to tell you, oh, the possibility of this thing is going to be so great. I've been using it for a year. It's awesome. I know. I use it almost on a daily basis these days. In terms of indirect versus direct, I'll say that there are clinicians out there that will look at my Midas restoration and go, well, that looks terrible. I can do a direct composite that looks better than that. I'm not going to argue with them. They're direct composite that looks gorgeous, that will last, that multi-layer with different type of composite coloration that's built into that. We can print multi-material, multi-chromatic restoration currently. Eventually it will. But for now, I do agree with that. But it's similar to looking at this bottle, right? So you can see this bottle on the screen. If I were to ask someone to say that, I would like you to draw a picture of this label. I want to make it front and back perfect. And you can't use any technology. So here's a pen and here's a pencil. I want you to sketch a whole entire thing. There are great artists in the world that'll be able to do it. And we'll look at the final product and we'll wow in amazement. It's like, wow, look at this guy's skill to be able to draw this. That's not something that average human beings can do. What digital technology and what democratizing dentistry and high quality dentistry, to me, what that means is anybody here can do this. Take a picture with your iPhone, right? Put it onto Photoshop, clean up the lighting, and print it. I am more comfortable doing restoration on that computer screen, sculpting the anatomy, than in a mouth with a tiny little burr with an overhead light and the patient wanting to spit every 5 seconds, and then worry about whether or not my matrix band is or my interproximal contact is wedged together, whether or not the wedge is pinching the patient, whether or not there's going to be bleeding, whether or not there's going to be a bubble, and whether or not there's going to be any void, and then how much occlusion I need to adjust. Some things in dentistry that, as time goes on, you get much better at it. Wisdom tooth extraction, for example, crown prep, for example, you get better over time. Other things like, maxillary second molar and first molar endo,
No way.
direct composite, MLDL, cuspal coverage, and all that kind of stuff. Like after 20 years, you're not going to get any better than this. And it's just as miserable to do them today as it was 15 years ago. It's just painful. It's not a good experience. And you look at the end result and then you whip out your SLR camera or your VPR and try to take a picture, you go like, nah, let's not take a picture of this. I'm not really proud of this. With indirect restoration, we can reproduce details that's never seen before. So I post a lot of photos of the same cases, right? So I always tell people, my opinion doesn't matter. I'll take a picture. You can make that determination yourself. Just on Tuesday, we did a case. A patient came in for a crown replacement. Existing crown was a PFM, and essentially the ceramic worn down with a rough metal margin that chewed up the opposing dentition. We cut the whole entire thing off. Margin was fine. We reprepped it a little bit, scanned it in both the CEREC and also the Medit. I printed one restoration. I milled the other restoration on GC Initial to save time. When you take a photo of both that restoration, it's painfully obvious which one is higher quality, which one has better occlusal detail, which one looks more natural, has more translucency. I presented the patient and we elected to bond the Crown HT that would print on the Midas. It wasn't comparable. Sure, you can take a fine flame-shaped diamond burr and carve the anatomy back into that GC Initial.
Right.
Again, it takes skill, like copying this. I like to have full control. And like what I said, we want to be able to approach dentistry not from the perspective as an artist, but more from the perspective as an engineer. We want a blueprint of everything. We want something that is reproducible. If anything were to ever happen to this restoration, if you were to crack, I want to be able to pull out the original file, do a fractional slice, put it into physical simulation to find out why it breaks so we can do things better. You can't do that with direct composite. We're sitting there guessing.
What about the new HT resin? Have you tested it yet? You have a while ago, right?
I have tested it as part of a polishing R&D project. I have not printed with it myself at the office.
Oh, because we need the Midas. Yeah, we got.
Yeah.
So, fix that problem for him.
But I will say it's beautiful. The samples that we tested for the polishing with another vendor a few months ago were wonderful. I think we've tested a whole bunch of products. That one was a standout for sure. Polishability for me is key. I remember there was a material. There was a CEREC. Remember Anamic?
Yeah.
The Vita product. It was 85% ceramic, 15% resin, CEREC block, milled, beautiful margins. I mean, as sharp as you could print today. This was a decade ago. But oh my God, the horror of polishing that stuff.
You couldn't polish it.
It was terrible. You had to buy their polishers to polish it, and these polishers were $15 each, and it would take almost an entire polisher to polish one restoration with it.
The HT, you're testing it. You tested it before.
Beautiful, easy,
and you know easy. More stuff are in the hopper that we can't talk about it. But
yeah, no. So
that's the polishability.
So I like analogies, right? I love analogies. So I'll give you an analogy. Like, I love Mexican food, right? So I love Mexican food, burrito, chips, quesadilla, whatnot. So ceramic crown when it was first launched is sort of like, imagine sitting in a restaurant eating Mexican food with no salsa, right? There's no hot sauce, there's no salsa. Here's your chip, just eat the chip, right? And here's your burrito, like there's no sauce in there. Here's just like, you got your egg, you got your bacon, you got your carnitas, and you got your bean and rice in there, but no salsa. So ceramic crown is like Mexican food with no salsa. And HT is like Mexican food with salsa. So as much as I can say like, oh, it's a great addition to it, it's like, no, like this is stuff that was supposed to be there in the first place. It was meant to be.
I don't know.
I'll take it. I'll take the criticism.
I thought it was the other way around. I think ceramic crown, it was, you have to paint the salsa on. That was the problem. You have to paint the salsa on.
No, the reality is, again, we started from as a hardware software company, and then we saw 2019, 2020 that without being competent and a player in the material aspect of it, it's just nothing else matters. That's why when I look at so-and-so company announces a new printer and here is there and it's automated and this and that, I just laugh. It's not about 10% faster, 20% faster, 10% cheaper. It's about the quality of the material and the polishability, all the stuff. So when we started, we had zero knowledge of material in 2019, 2020. You've met you work side by side with our scientists. And we had to compete with material companies with 100-year-old history.
Yes.
So it took us 5-6 years to really gain that expertise, to make it perform well and make it look good. And finally, with HT is the beginning of a new revolution, and then combine it with what Midas do. And the reason I'm telling this story is it takes time and a lot of R&D investment to be good at all three. And finally, ceramic crown wasn't the best, but it was needed back then to push the envelope with the early adopters and with us to see it's possible to print chair-side restorations. And after that, we got into feasibility with new materials. And one more thing I say about SprintRay, we go and test and try it, and even a lot of people say, don't do it, you're going to horribly fail. But I think if we didn't do ceramic crown in 2023, if we didn't do crown kit in 2023, Midas didn't exist today.
Absolutely. You really got to try it. So the way engineering material design and failure analysis is that you have to try it. And then you have to identify the pain points. You have to identify where there's insufficiencies. And then you have to find the solution and fix that. So one thing about, asking dentists to think more like an engineer and asking the dentist to really improve the rate of fabrication. It's not so much that we want to make a crown faster. It's not so much that we want to be able to design and print something faster. Is that high quality product or high quality prosthesis doesn't come from, I have the perfect scan, I have the perfect design, I have the perfect material and the perfect print. It comes out one shot and it fits perfectly. Oftentimes in engineering is that we have Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4. We have to go through what we call iteration engineering.
Exactly.
Right? We have to make it, and the reason why it needs to be fast is because only when we print it and we try to validate it can we find the flaw and move on to the next iteration and the next iteration. And I think I learned a lot of that from working with SprintRay. So we continue to push forward and keep running. And whatever mistake that you learn becomes a valuable lesson. The mistake today will make the product better tomorrow. And I learned that from SpaceX as well, right? So you can be NASA and Boeing and EOA and then spend 15 years to build a rocket and then hope by God that the first time you launch it doesn't blow up. Or it could be like SpaceX. We're going to launch a rocket every 2 weeks and then half of them are going to blow up. But the end result is like all the failure become knowledge that the other company does not have. And now we have reusable rocket that we can fly like 15, 20 times. And no one else can do it. Not because they're geniuses, but because they have made all those mistakes in the past.
Very true.
And until the other company makes all the mistakes, they're never going to be able to catch up because their philosophy is, let's go very, very slowly and try to do something that have no failure. You don't know what kind of failure and obstacle you're going to encounter unless you just jump in there and do it in the first place.
So Vu, I want to wrap the podcast with what's the best material of all time in dentistry?
The best material of all time in dentistry. Tungsten carbide.
Isn't it gold?
No, tungsten carbide, because if you have no burrs, you can't cut the teeth to make the dentistry. That's why. Oh man, the best material we've ever had in dentistry. Gold's up there. Gold's up there, and
Everyone
I
says gold.
think we have to have something to aspire to. You have to have, whether it's landing on Mars or fixing the budget deficit or curing homelessness, you have to have something to aspire to. I do look at the gold restorations from the masters of yesterday. I see them in my patients' mouths, and we aspire to the fit. Obviously, we can do better cosmetically now. We aspire to the fit and durability of gold for sure, as far as the best all-time material. I think
So the malleability too, right?
that slight bit of malleability, and gold.
So where
Gold though, but gold is not. We don't put elemental gold in patients' mouths. We actually put an alloy of gold.
right?
We're mixing gold, palladium, silver, all sorts of different metals to make an alloy that has a blend of different things. Composite's kind of like a pejorative word in dentistry. But really, the word composite, or composite, depending on what part of flavor of English you speak,
Right.
the word composite means a mixture of things. And what you see at SprintRay is taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and combining to make different properties. You have this same pantry of materials makes something that is opaque and accurately printing for models, that is translucent and slightly flexible for night guards, that is translucent and more flexible for retainers, or that is ceramic and wear resistant for crowns. We're taking a lot of those ingredients, mixing them up, kind of like the Mexican food. Sometimes you do it a little bit different to make a burrito, a little bit different to make a taco, or sometimes you feel like an enchilada.
Yeah. Yeah. And you combine it with Midas.
Whole enchilada.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that.
Are we gonna retcon it? Let's retcon it. So here's my take on it.
Okay.
Over the past few years of doing a lot of speaking engagement, meeting with a lot of universities globally, speaking to famous prosthodontists, implantologists, Dr. Pascal Mathieu, for example, we come to the conclusion that the biggest supporter for printing technology and Midas are actually prosthodontists. And these are the doctors that don't like the direction in which dentistry has been going over the last 15, 20 years.
Which is?
Zirconia, like Emax and then zirconia, and then something that's even harder than that. We spent 100 years in dentistry from amalgam. We tried really, really hard for the last 50 years to move away from amalgam. Something that is really hard, something that's completely inflexible, something that doesn't look very good in the mouth, something that's completely radio opaque. And thus arrived the resin era and the ceramic era. So the question is, why did we go back to zirconia? Something that's completely radio opaque, something that wears opposing a lot, that is really, really hard, in fact, too hard. So the question that I always ask people is zirconia really a biocompatible material? Is this something that we consider that you want to wear against something? So in automobile engineering, right? So, in my other life, I'm a big car guy.
Right.
If you were to get a helmet for your car or for your motorcycle, do you want your helmet to be made from titanium? You don't.
No, don't.
Because what will happen is that you're going to get in an accident, your head is going to shear off from the vehicle, and then the helmet will be perfectly fine. They'll just take your head out of it, wipe out the blood, and sell it to the next guy. No, you actually want a helmet to crack. You want it to deflect. You want it to break to protect your brain. And So zirconia is so hard that the patient accidentally bite down on something really, really hard, your tooth will probably break in half, or your opposing molar is going to crack in half, and the zirconia will be perfectly fine. What are we going to do? Take this zirconia ground, clean out the inside, and bond it into the next patient's mouth? At some point, if we have to choose between dentin and enamel failure versus material failure, shouldn't we choose a material that is slightly weaker than enamel? Something that will actually work before your natural enamel wears? We can replace the restoration, but you can't replace surface enamel. We rather have a crown that breaks in half. I can replace that. I can even warranty it. In my office, we warranty our restorations. If the opposing dentition cracks in half, that's an extraction and dental implant. And maybe some dentists will say, financially, we want that. I don't want that.
Would you agree with that? I see hesitation there.
So I think that, Steve, you and I, we both think like engineers. I think the whole point of SprintRay is so that they do the engineering so that the user dentist does not have to.
Right.
And I think we are I think you're right. We do need to move on from zirconia. It's a Goldilocks issue though, right? Because we've had Lava Ultimate as an example, a material that is maybe a little too flexible, breaks off. Too stiff, breaks for another reason. So it's a give and take, a composite, if you will, a little bit, we're going to find that right compromise. Yeah. I think that the HT resins in really going in the right direction there, because now we are getting some aesthetics back. And we're seeing zirconia do this too, by the way. Zirconia is giving back a little bit. We're getting 5Ys zirconia.
They get weak and they're not zirconia anymore.
Well, so I'm not saying zirconia is all bad. I'm just saying certain property of zirconia is really undesirable. So for example, if I'm doing 3-unit posterior bridge, everything else is going to break. You're going to put zirconia in there, but I don't like having that zirconia on the occlusal surface. So what if we do a zirconia coping and we have either ceramic or printed restoration on top of it that we can actually prep off and replace down the road? But the idea is that the prosthodontists, they are really looking at composite restoration as being superior to something like lithium disilicate and zirconia. There's some things like wear property that we want to overcome. Like flexural strength, we want it to be good. We want to have color stability, which we're already there at SprintRay. But the idea is that between composite resin, between ceramic and between something like metal restoration or like metal oxide and organic oxide like zirconia, there are pro and cons on both parties. And I think I would agree with Amir and a lot of prosthodontists. The ideal material for dental restoration doesn't yet exist. But if we had to pick the closest one that most people can have consensus on, it's probably going to be gold. So why don't we take the closest one to the ideal material, right? What if you can have anything? You can have any type of mechanical property. What would you have? Gold is the closest. So now how can we maintain all the advantages of gold and then bring in something like we want the bondability of resin? And then we want to have the aesthetic of ceramic, right? And the wear resistance that is similar to gold and change all that. And amongst all that, what is the closest material we have to go that can actually address those issues? We're not going to be able to magically be an alchemist and turn gold into tooth color. We're not going to be able to mechanically change gold into something that will bond to dentin and enamel well, right? So I will argue that printed restoration today and seeing the development over the last 2 years, 3D printed material is probably the closest that we can have to something that will eventually evolve into what I like to call like liquid gold, right?
Which is Midas crown.
And that's why it's called Midas, right?
Exactly.
From the start, that's why we call it Midas. Midas implies that we want to achieve not just something similar to lithium disilicate or enamel, something that is composite. The ideal dental material to exist that is compatible to the human body doesn't yet exist. And that is our goal. We don't want to replace zirconia or Emax. We don't want to replace, enamel and amalgam. We want something even better that the world hasn't seen before. And I think that's a very noble pursuit.
Absolutely. No, we're looking forward to it. The HT is launched and that R&D continues. We don't stop.
Yes.
Very excited about the new stuff coming.
Yeah.
What about, I think, final thoughts, AI at IDS? I think we're going to see gazillions of companies talking about AI this, AI that, patient calls, just name it. 4 or 5 different companies just reached out to me after or at Chicago Midwinter with some sort of AI solution. Before I share my thoughts, what do you think, Vu? What is that direction?
I think there are some really, really promising AI things. I've integrated Pearl into my office.
So you're using it every day?
It's not perfect, but I tell you what, it speeds up X-ray review because just imagine having an employee of yours kind of stick the sticky notes on a contract before you've read it. You already know, that's kind of the analogy I would put is it flags the trouble spots,
right?
So you can double check it and make the call yourself.
How much is it?
Pearl is $350 or $350 a month, I believe, is the going rate. I think so. Yeah. I was reluctant at first, but I'm always reluctant to add a monthly bill.
Medit charges $50 for so much CAD features. There's so much pushback, and then you get $350.
No, it's
X-ray, and you're
perspective. It's perspective. It's perspective. I didn't want to do. To be honest, I didn't want to do it. Everyone's got a different price sensitivity, right?
Sure.
On things. I think the utility it adds, as far as just being able to review your X-rays quicker, just being able to show your patients, hey, look, it's not just me. The AI thinks it also. I think there's a value to that. I think also, of course, your high-tech image you want to convey to your patients that, hey, we are using AI, new technology to not just for the sake of using it, but to make us more thorough in your dental care. I think that's important too. We've had, I don't say it to patients, but we've had, software propose crowns. I mean, we have SprintRay crown proposals. We have Sarah crown proposals. We have those algorithms, and we tell people, hey, the technology is not perfect. They, as long as the end result is good for them, they like to see forward progress. And I hope people see forward progress at SprintRay too. Sometimes one step forward, one step back, but overall, I just think back to that Moonray printer I bought out of a trunk in LA. I like to say, I bought it from a Korean guy out of his trunk in LA.
Yeah. Me too. Koreatown. Yeah.
But you see, and then you look at and you compare and contrast that to my current printer now, and you can see when you open up, other people just see a product. I have the benefit of seeing history. And so I see where it has been, where it is now, and I am blessed enough to have a peek at what's coming, and I'm very encouraged by it.
Very excited. What about AI in your practice? So were you speculate at IDS?
So for me, right, I'm more of a futurist. So for me to see where the future goes, what I do is I take a point in time, which is right now, and I backtrack 5 years before today, or like, let's say like 10 years before digital. I started doing digital dentistry for a lot of different things. I draw a straight line. I essentially extend it into the other direction to see where we go. And I'll say that in all my years of practice and in and out of dentistry and different type of engineering field, I feel like true innovation and true progression is driven by lazy people, right? If you're very, very diligent, you'll never invent anything. If you're a farmer, I want you to go out there and plow these things from the rice field, right? You're going to do this 10 hours a day and 7 days or like 6 days a week for 20 years. And if you're a very hard worker and you're a very diligent person and you just do this every day, you'll never invent anything. So you actually want someone like me who will plow in the rice field for like 15 minutes and I'll just be like, man, I cannot do this for the rest of the day.
For the rest of my life.
For the rest of my life. I can't even do this for the rest of the hour. I have to figure something out so I don't have to do this because I'm going to drown myself in that muddy pool because I can't handle it. So things like Pearl AI, things like practice management software, I think, forget everything you know about dentistry. Today, you're a dentist and you have a dental license and you know how to prep these things. And you're used to just taking impressions, send out to the laboratory and manage things. In the world of AI, what would you do? Right? Kind of like I drove here today with Dr. Voulet. I didn't drive. I just hop on my hop on my Tesla, double click the full self-driving, and the car already took me here. I don't want to do anything. So imagine a world where, as a dentist, AI is going to market for you, bring the patient, makes an appointment, tell your front desk what to do, tell your assistant what to prepare, tell you what you're working on the big screen. In fact, if you don't know how to prep a crown or an inlay and outlay, you'll just pop on the screen. It'll tell you exactly how to prep it, where the angulation needs to be. You prep it, your DFS and your assistant scans
Pearl
it.
does it?
Well, a different AI software.
Oh, AI software.
He's just
So, like for
thinking.
example, like Medit, right?
Yeah.
They're just gonna say, I'm gonna do an inlay, MOD inlay for tooth number 12. You scan it, and the computer just basically just smack it on the back of the hand, and go like, this is a bad prep. You need to change it here and here. We don't have the path to draw, and this ceramic is gonna break because of the force indication over here. So you need to prep in a different way, so we can design your restoration that will actually work, and then having all of that being done for you. So all you do as a dentist is imagine a world where you only do the things that you're the only person in the office that can do it. So if anyone else in the world can do the job, you outsource everything. You go in there, you prep your 3 crowns, your 4 veneers, and you extract a couple of teeth and you go home. And I'm not saying that that's what we're going to see in IDS, but I think for the next 10 years, that's where we're going to see our profession going. And I think the target for any company that are in digital anything actually, whether it be consumer dentistry or engineering, does your product fundamentally touch the lives of those people that use it? Offer a good quality product that is efficient, but does it make their life better? Does this technology make you happier? And if this technology is giving you more work and more headache, then don't do it. These things are supposed to be fun. 3D printing is supposed to bring you joy, and it's supposed to bring you hope. It's supposed to change the way that you see problem solving. And you become a better dentist, you become a better inventor, you become a better communicator, like Dr. Voulet's VPR. If you don't have a means of taking high quality clinical photo, you cannot do anything with your clinical cases. Even if you're the greatest clinician in the entire world, how do you convince your patient and fellow dentists and anyone else that you're any good at this? Right? So this needs to be fun, it needs to be effective, and also it needs to make you happier. And I'm hoping this is what we're going to see in IDS, where besides the possibility and the feasibility, we start asking the quality of life question for both us
lazy
and the
ability.
The lazy ability, yeah. Don't be diligent. I got dentists that sit there and ask me, how do you trim the partial dentures? How do you trim your retainer? I tell them, I don't know. I don't do that in my office. Why would I do
Taught
that?
my staff.
Yeah.
I'd say for specific AI applications, I would expect in diagnostics, obviously we have Pearl right now that's already FDA cleared. There's others coming, I'm sure of it. You're going to see probably, I'd love to see, more in terms of occlusal analysis. I expect to see that. I expect to see that both from the scanner companies and maybe some independent ones to plan occlusion. Smile design obviously continues to evolve. That one's an obvious one. I think you're going to see smile design get better and better. You are going to see scanners get better and better at self-correction. 3Shape Trios 5 is a good example of that, where it will actually correct a bad scan path in front of your eyes. I expect to see AI in terms of radiography. Besides caries and periodiagnosis with Pearl, I'm expecting to see segmentation. Segmentation to segment the teeth from the bone and the roots. And the adjunct to that is going to be, that's going to help implantology, but it's also going to feed over to ortho, where you're going to expect to see orthodontic AI setups, where you'll see better and better proposals. I hate to use the word ClinChecks, but better and better proposals. Better and better proposals of orthodontic treatment plans being done entirely autonomously. And the proposals are going to get better and better and better. We already have a degree of that now. Right? If you have an iTero or you have a Medit, you already have an ortho simulation available, and you're gonna continue to see that get better. AI receptionists that answer the phone, and there's already one kind of making the circles around the social media circles, right? We can call her, and I actually tried it. You can maintain a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, it's crazy.
To cover your off hours or when you're busy or your other employees are busy. Maybe even if you're a primary receptionist, if you got an ultra lean business model. So we're going to see a lot of that. Obviously, SprintRay, we're going to have more AI applications. We had night guards first, and we're venturing onto crowns, retainers. We're going to see more of that. I think AI dentures already being done. You're going to see more and more stuff happening.
Treatment planning. No, I agree with all of those, and I think it's much needed. Especially when it comes to 3D printing, I see them as important as materials, and that's why to see massive adoption.
We're not quite at the Nespresso phase yet. It's not quite that easy yet
because of the design.
It's not the design. The design's the main hang-up.
Yep. We're pretty
the capsule's
much there.
there.
The capsule's there. The design's single unit crown.
The design
is there.
Yeah.
Partial is going to get there in the next couple of weeks.
It also
Deadline
needs to
is
add
IDS.
that idea, though, that Steve had about the prep correction, because this is big. Yeah. Dentists do not necessarily know, I mean, myself included, old habits die hard. We have to modify our preps to the material we're using. So you need to have the AI that says, hey, this is an under-reducted zone. This is an over-reduced zone. This is too tapered. This is not tapered enough. It can read the texture and say, hey, listen, your shape is there, but you need to use a finer diamond, and say it in a non-insulting way, of course.
Does Medit do it? You said Medit gives you a prep consultation.
So Medit will tell you when you under preps in some area. So there'll be a heat map that goes like, well, you say your minimum reduction is going to be like 1.5 or 1.2 millimeter, for example. This specific spot is less than that, so you need to do that.
And we do it too.
Yeah.
If it's minimum thickness and we force it. But the prep consultation AI, there's no such a thing.
No, and then
build it.
But you got to ask yourself the question: why not? Imagine.
I tell you, from an entrepreneur technologist standpoint, I see a lot of these small pieces of clinical. People want to do a company around it. It's really, really hard to get funding for. I'm just going to make an AI for clinical, the prep consultation. It's very, very hard.
Because the investors.
It's hard to fund it because who's going to fund a very small little niche that may or may not you make money out of it?
Yeah.
And you're just a feature. These things are a feature on a big platform. They're not full products. So that's why the incentives for investors to put money in there is not there. You got to find super crazy good entrepreneurs who kind of bootstrap the heck out of everything to give you a solution. But it's still, it's just matters of 2 Scrum or 2 software releases for ExoCAD or 3Shape to make a company disappear. You know, there's so much risk of that involved. I think
agree.
if a company does it, it's probably 3Shape, Exocat, or us. I would say one of us three, which are very active in that and already have an ecosystem and a platform, will pour money into that for added feature.
Well, I'll say this. So my own consulting company, the Unicorn Design Consulting, so we dabble in many different fields outside of dentistry.
Right.
The way that we dentists prep for crowns and inlay and onlay, and the way that we design these restoration, like even like high expense veneers, if you try to do this in engineering design, so for example, if you imagine I'm trying to build an apartment on a hill, and the architect just go in there and instead of doing any soil study and lay the foundation and figure out how the physical property is going to work under an earthquake, but be like, yeah, I'm going to sketch this box on the side of the hill at a 30-degree incline. We're just going to build it and hope for the best. That's what dentistry is, right? We don't actually know how much force, what kind of force is coming from the flexibility for the material, the tooth structure. There's a lot of room to growth once we start to get into the nitty-gritty detail. Now, obviously, doing one single onlay and you charge a patient, say, what, like $1,000, $1,500 is very different from building a $50 million apartment complex. The difference is the amount of time, energy, and effort that you put into to do the engineering study. But if all that can be done in AI, the quality of the dental engineering is going to improve by leaps and bounds. And the future is going to be so much better. And I always call it the blueprint dentistry, right? We should know exactly where we're going. We should know exactly what to expect. And in case of any failure, we have all the data to back it up to do a root cause analysis and then fix it for the next time. And in the hundreds of years of dentistry, no one has done that yet. And then it doesn't make sense why we don't.
Very true. Thank you, guys. Any final thoughts? Closing thoughts?
You know, I don't know.
Keep grinding.
Keep grinding. Keep grinding. Eat your tacos, burritos, and enchiladas. I don't know.
Full enchilada.
The whole enchilada.
Yeah.
The whole enchilada.
I think that's a couple of good quotable notables. The painted salsa was the best
of all
one.
Yeah, the painted salsa
Painted
and
salsa.
the chips is no salsa.
Yeah, that was chips
of all
no salsa was good.
For me, I'll say that, you know, I've been a clinical dentist for 20 years.
Right.
And then, you know, I'm 40-some years old this year. The last 2-3 years have been probably the most fulfilling life that I had in terms of my career and the experience and all that. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to like watch SprintRay grow and then, you know, being welcome into part of the team to learn all these things. And I know, like, when you're younger, and then when I first joined, it's like you're wide-eyed wonder, and you're just like, wow, everything is so cool. You learn about it, and then you start to go through some of the challenges and face what we need to do. But you know, a couple of years down the road, like, rest assured, like, everything is done by the book. And then this is a truly innovative company. I've done consulting for other companies before. You know, like back in the day with Dentsply Sirona, I would tell them, hey, I think there's a problem here. We should fix it. And then 15 years later, I figure out that it hasn't been fixed. That's pretty standard in the industry. But at SprintRay, it's sort of like if you give the company feedback, the engineering team from the top to bottom, everybody takes it very seriously. The rate of growth really has a lot to do with the leadership of the company. And I think SprintRay was founded, you know, by Amir, Jing, Hossein, and Liang, and then you guys are all engineers in your heart. So everybody truly cares about the product. They care about making this really a strong company. I learned a lot from that. I got inspired a lot from that. And also, you know, I ended up learning about things in like 5-6 different industries, a global sense, and you know, it's a life-changing experience. So it's a lot of fun, and I wish I could like share that enthusiasm and the passion with other people. So
I think you're doing a good job on that.
thank you. But yeah, it's really awesome. Today I cannot imagine my life without digital dentistry. So sort of like if someone were to say, hey, I want you to not use your iPhone for the next month, you're going to have a miserable month. Then I go out there and smell the coffee and look at the bird, and you just end up sitting there going like, what do I do now? There's no purpose in life anymore. Digital technology is sort of like that. And companies like Medit, like 3Shape, like the old Dentsply Sirona, not the new one, and SprintRay really evolved dentistry into a field where you got to start thinking more like a dental engineer and a dental artist, right? Rather than just being a clinical dentist, and stay in that reality, right? Remember we talk about reality and virtuality? Like, this is a special ability that you can have. You just need to want it. So you don't want to do complete analog anymore. It's like digital dentistry is so fun, But please keep that in mind. I'll say the same thing that I always tell my archery students as well. Of the 3 things that you need to remember, like in first archery lesson, it's always, what are the 3 most important things, right? Number 1 is safety. Make sure what you're doing does not harm you, does not harm your staff, it does not harm the patient. Make sure the stuff that you're putting in the patient's mouth is absolutely safe. There's no gray area here. It's very clearly stated what validated workflow is, what safety, what consideration, whether or not all this material is properly tested. Safety first. You can't do anything else if you're dead or if you're sued and you lose your license. Number 2 is remember to have fun. This is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to make your life easier. This is supposed to cheer up your patient. This is supposed to give you special ability like a superhero that you can do that you can never imagine that you otherwise could not accomplish. And number 3 is everything else. So everything else includes how to scan, how to design, how to print, how to post-process, and how do I conceptualize problem solving. That's actually priority number 3. So safety, fun, and then everything else. So
Safety,
if you do,
fun, everything else.
yeah, if you do that, you'll have a good time, and I think your digital journey will be much, much more interesting.
Amazing. Thank you guys for coming over.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.